Erli Gurra. When was the first time we met?
I think it was October 2007.
You remember so well. How come?
Yeah, because I was supposed to come to do the stage after the school. It was quite a big day for a student to go and meet the future master.
So how did you choose now Edgar?
Usually during this period in the school, they give you names of different masters, violin makers here in Cremona, and you have to choose one. But
So the last one, which was the leftover, was Edgar.
was not more the leftover, but something that not a lot of students would come because the name was so big already. So
Really?
it was like, Edgar, oh, it's a big name, so it's probably he will not take us. And
First time I hear that. Really?
yeah, it was like
Because
that.
I have no idea how students see me, know me, think what I'm doing. It's always a big question. So that was in 2007 now. Things have changed. Almost 20 years later, we're now here, 18 years later. 18 years later.
Yeah.
Wow. How old are you now?
40.
40. He was a young boy, but I really had big fun with him. He actually in the beginning had to do only 400 hours of stage. That was by law. They invented that you make the violin making school and you have to make 400 hours of stage in a workshop here in Cremona. They canceled that whole thing because no workshop was actually filling all the rules and safety and security and first aid and I don't know, you had to do all these kind of courses. I made them every time there came up something, and so at a certain point I figured out I was the only workshop in Cremona who was all perfect. And one of my students of these projects, because we had also other ones, was Erli Gurra. And Erli arrived very happy to work here, and the workshop was still smaller and was me and you. That was 2007. We came here in this workshop in 2004. So wow, this is a long time ago. And at the time we were making this interview or this talking here, this is just probably the last half year has started to be here in this workshop, and then we will very likely move to a different workshop, which we're restoring now at the time.
So the next interview is going to be in the new workshop, yeah?
If you mean that every 18 years we make an interview, and then very likely, yes. I hope so. We are going to make next year another one already over there, but it's very difficult to understand if we're ready at the time. The relation to Erli became very intense already in the first beginning, in the first months. After he finished these 400 hours, I don't remember what you had to do. A viola, no?
I did a viola. And
All 40.5 viola.
40.5 viola.
I see.
I'm the only one student of the school who did a viola.
Really?
Yeah, everyone else violins.
Okay. That was a good one. That was a good viola. I still remember. And then you stayed here also to work for a little bit longer, right?
Yeah, for almost a couple of years.
2 years?
Yeah, something like that. And then I left Cremona and went back home to open my workshop.
Originally, you are from?
I'm from Tirana, Albania.
At that time, Albania for me was just a country a little bit strange, because here in the news we had so many people coming when they changed the whole country.
After the changing of the political situation, we were in a small country under a communist dictatorship for 50 years. And in the beginning of the 19th, we changed that thing. And you can imagine that we were like almost like North Korea nowadays. People were not so instructed or so
Handle all this freedom.
Yeah, didn't know how to.
So some became very rich very quick.
And some remained
Most
very
of them stayed poor because they were overwhelmed. So they didn't know.
They didn't know how to give, yeah.
Most of them came first to Italy, and over the years it was nice to see what became out of this small little country. And Erli is definitely one of these people who went back. I always suggest him, don't go to Switzerland, don't go in another country, go back and work there and you will have a better life. And that's what he actually did after 2 years working with me.
Yeah.
You went back, you had a lot of moments where you were doubting that this was a good decision or not, right?
It's always like that. At the beginning, you were more doubts that convictions that the thing is going to work. Year after year, the market in Albania was a good market, and working with musicians and restoration and TLC, manutenzione, on
Tender love care, maintenance.
on violins, on most important musicians that work on the orchestras in Albania. the working started becoming quite appreciable.
And we have to point out at that point that Gurra in Tirana is actually famous because his father had already a musical instrument shop.
Atelier, yeah.
And your father was in charge of the conservatory to tune the pianos.
Yeah, my father is a piano tuner restorer, but in the, let's call it, dictatorship years, he used to work even on violins or on accordions, on all kind of instruments.
Okay.
And then that's why he's quite famous.
Very nice guy, by the way, super nice. I went there for his wedding. It was super. So this is already a good background because then you're used to treat with musicians and they come to your house and they knew that you made the violin making school, so they show up.
Yeah.
You don't become rich now with all this work, a lot of work.
No.
Tiny small things to do, but it's growing.
Absolutely, and at the beginning was a really good experience working directly with the musicians, looking what they want and what they were expecting from their violins, and being able to change some things, just working what I've learned in the school and here, and I was able to do work on instruments, and they could really see that the school where I went was capable of doing good changes, sometimes even big changes on these instruments.
But so the business of your father and yours is separate, it's different.
Yeah, we are two different businesses, even sometimes working in the same place, but two...
But you tried also to have your workshop in a different place. Now your house is quite a big house, I don't know, 3 or 4 floors. Ground level, there's workshop and the shop of your father and all the pianos and this huge place.
And my father lives in the first floor and I live in the second floor. And the ground floor is the shop of the pianos and the atelier where my father works with the pianos. And now I have moved my working space there.
To sell your instruments, you also, I suggested, this is my fault, I suggested you, Erli, you have to be at Mondo Musica, not like me that I stay in my workshop, but Erli comes from outside, so it's good that he has his booth, and he does that very well. When he was working with me in these 2 years, we made a lot of fairs together at the time in Frankfurt, and it was always a great pleasure to make a fair with Erli because he's a sunny boy, and it's good to work with him on a fair because he just knows how to do with people, talk to them, be nice, a smiley, happy person, a positive person is always attracting other people and you're looking forward to talk with him because it's always a pleasure. So we made a few fairs with him and he could taste a little bit how Edgar is running the business and how my concept is to do good business and to have a lot of friends. Idea is to make it with people and not against people. So I don't want to talk bad about them. I don't want to criticize others. I just do my thing as good as possible from every day in the morning until late at night. And that's how my secret, yeah? Erli got that message and then he also continued doing it. In the beginning making Frankfurt, then Shanghai. Now you're almost for how many years?
The first fair was Mondo Musica, and then after Mondo Musica here in Cremona, I did Frankfurt, Musikmesse, and then since 2018, Shanghai Music China.
By the way, the first fair and all the fairs here in Cremona, he makes always with his wife, Emma. And he is married with Emma and then has 2 children, right?
We are expecting the second one, yes.
Okay. So almost, but actually almost. At the time you will see this movie, already 2 children, yeah? Now, Erli today is actually here because he arrived to Cremona almost 2 weeks ago. On Saturday he's leaving, but he will stay there here for 2 weeks. Last Shanghai Music Fair, me and Min, we just said, hey Erli, I think it's time that you come to Cremona and we do a little bit of refreshing of the setup of the instruments, yeah? Saying that, let's talk a little bit how it is for somebody who studied here in Cremona. Cremona, the level of violin making is very high. And then you leave Cremona, you go far away. How is that? Is it difficult or?
I think it's quite difficult. If you don't have a lot of travels, a lot of communications with other violin makers here, I don't feel that you can get updates on anything. Even that violin making is half a century old. There are always updates. At the beginning was okay because you work on what you've learned from the school and from here from the workshop. workshop and everything. After some time, you can feel that you need a little bit of like a refreshing on something or an update on certain things, because Tirana, Albania is not such a big country where you have a lot of musicians. It's different the way that violin makers here in Cremona, for example, follow the needs of a musician differently from what I was used to work with other musicians in Albania. So I think this was a really special thing to come and to have this opportunity to do this.
Not obvious, and only few people actually agree in doing something like this. I know myself, I was myself in this situation when Karl Becker invited me to America to come. I didn't know anything about what he's going to teach me. It was for me eye-opening and probably even life-changing what I learned there, how to put a sound post, how to fit the bridge feeds, things which are very easy, obvious, but if you have one of these champions who teaches you and insists and wants you to do that, it's a different thing, yeah. And it was also, I have to, don't want to talk everything, but it was for me interesting to see how Erli, after so many years of working, I only saw always during the fairs in Mondo Musica and in China what he arrived, and then you saw that he always is selling everything. But seeing now when he was here, I had already a clear plan. I told him, bring the violin to this and this point, and then we will make the next setting and this and the fingerboard and what. I knew already more or less without telling him previously what we're going to do. And then we fixed everything in order that we could have the violin ready, and he pulled up the strings. Now we still have to finish here some retouch, so then it is finally completely finished. But it's the first few tones I tried. You will never hear me playing in front of the camera. Is already very, very, very promising. Okay, so it was a great pleasure for me to teach you, tell you, and see how you were able to bring these things which I tell you within short moment, to perfection. That was really eye-opening, and for me one of the first time, because usually I have to teach to people who are not at that level at that point. So that was a really nice experience. Yeah, my idea now is I make this video, I tell you who is Erli Gurra. He might be criticized by others. Yeah, he is not working in Cremona. Yes, he is working in Tirana, but he is my student. Okay, I definitely consider him my student in the way of dealing with people, in the way of approaching problems, in the way of how to get things solved, and then definitely you can see it how the instrument sounds. This is actually the reason we're doing this here. So how was that experience now with you working with me here?
Hearing you talking about your experience with Becker in Chicago, and now I feel what you have gone through during those days. Yeah,
so tremendous.
It's it was, you think after 20 years of working, you think that you almost know everything. Most of people continue working that like, I have my way of working, this is the right way, and I don't feel people need to continue like that. These 2 weeks for me was like doing another school, and the amount of things that I've learned, you cannot say that in 2 weeks you've learned so much, but it's extremely so much, and I think so much important on the way of setting up the instrument, finishing up the violin. It's like a game changer.
Okay, that's nice to hear. I take it as a compliment.
Yeah,
I did the same thing, and it's actually at a certain point you realize that you could at a certain point just increase the quantity of instruments. You know how to sell it, you low down the price, you raise the quantity, and then you sell a lot, right? Or you have the option to turn in the other direction and just say, let's come a little bit more down and let's go a little bit more in details. And this is actually all about. It's now, you would imagine, big secret. It's nothing new, but a little bit more precision without influencing too much the aesthetics of a violin. So Erli, definitely you could tell here this is a student of my workshop here. If you take a violin of Min or Marco and me and you put them on a violin from Erli, this here is Amati. I'm not a big fan of Amati, but I was impressed this morning when we pulled up the strings and everything. I just had to adjust a little bit with the bridge position, tuck, 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 and a little tiny things. And it's just impressive how a small Amati model, how well it can sound, yeah? And it's probably also for you nice to see how everything matches.
Absolutely. Putting the string on, it was like the moment of truth, and to see if what I've done these 2 weeks was going to matter a lot, and it absolutely, yeah, it mattered a lot.
So it's worth the effort.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, okay, so
absolutely.
I was blessed because I was already that he goes back. You know, Emma, I wasted here 2 weeks. We had a lot of beer and wine, and we were drunk every day. This is a Amati model. Yeah. What other models do you make?
Guarnieri.
Guarnieri, which one?
Yeah. Lord Wilton.
Yes.
The Isae.
Okay.
And Emil de Stauffer, which is the small Guarnieri.
Okay.
Yeah. Stradivari. The latest one was Princesse de Polignac. A strange model, first time I ever done it, but it's a long strad.
So you're still open for new models if a customer would come and say,
absolutely.
Erli, make me a copy of the Olibull or Sainton or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I'm just throwing my medals, but like Testore. You have the Testore also?
I've done the Testore, not your model, a different one.
Okay.
But yeah, I've done several times the Testore.
And wood-wise, in Albania, you are very close to Bosnia, so you get easier the wood, or how?
Yeah, so for the maple, yeah, I still go to Bosnia and to choose the wood, and the spruce, obviously, from the Alps of Italy.
Yes, okay. So when you for Mondo Musica, you buy.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Anytime that had me here, it's like with my wife Emma. Like, Emma, you go shopping, I go my own shopping.
The credit card, and you do the
You do my own shopping, yeah.
Okay. And resin and all that comes over from Cremona.
Everything.
Purfling, everything.
Everything.
Uh-huh. And what kind of varnish do you put on?
Oil varnish.
Oil varnish?
Yep. The same recipe and method that we learned together.
Really? So you cook your own varnish?
Yeah, I cook my own.
In the garden?
Absolutely, yes.
Downtown Tirana in the garden. Yeah, this is, your neighbors love you, huh? But
those days, no, but okay.
okay. So it's also linseed oil and emerald.
Emerald.
Okay. My idea is actually to have always one instrument of yours here. Yeah, that this would be something which I would love to have. Then I know it's very difficult. Cioè, ma abbiamo qualcosa che possiamo ancora dire?
Posso dire tipo che mio nonno ha fatto un violino
Pistra.
con un coltello, una sgorbia.
So, Erli, tell me about one tiny detail you never told me. Your grandfather built already instruments.
My grandfather was the first to build a violin of the Gurra dynasty. Yeah, the other great-grandfathers, they always worked with traditional folkloristic instruments.
Okay.
Instruments from area of Tirana. They have like this kind of descending from the lute, from the lito, like Lauria, Bulgaria. It was some kind of instruments for folkloristic music.
Like Tuzuki, no.
Buzuki, like Greek buzuki, but with different setup of the strings and tuning. And my grandfather was, he's a really famous music composer of traditional music.
What's the name of him?
Muharrem Gurra. During the first period of the communist regime, they went into his house because they thought he was like working with the Italians or something like that. And he was actually, before the World War, he was at the official band of the state of Albania. But at that time we had the king. It was like a kingdom. He was playing the corno. Because of that, they thought that he was like with the Italians or something like that. They went, the partisans, they went inside his house and broke his 2 violins.
Broke his 2 violins.
Crashed them.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't know that at that time he was fighting with the partisans. He didn't know that. So at that period, he was like, he started to make his own violins.
After they crafted
because it was at the period impossible to buy a violin. It was like poverty and misery everywhere. He made this violin with a knife and only one knife and one gouge. And remembering any detail from his personal violin, not even looking at something like that. And he played that violin till the day he died. So in 1998, he passed away, and till that day he played that violin.
So you still have that violin?
Yeah, we still have it.
Oh, you have to send me a picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
To see that.
It's like the back and the ribs are in one piece, carved inside,
Yeah.
and in cherry
wood.
Cherry wood.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's very for me it's like very personal, and I love it because he did it and how he did it and why he did it like that. And looking from the outside is like a strange violin with big Fs.
And measurements are more or less correct?
More or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just imagine myself if I just without any pictures, anything, no mold, I just have to build a violin. That would be interesting to see what turns out, you know? Wow. I'm curious to see.
Yeah,
pictures.
outside the pictures.
And you never told me about this.
Yeah,
story.
it's like that.
Wow.
And it was like almost one of the first motives why I was into violin making.
So when you were a small boy, you just saw that violin and just you heard that story and that made you also like more curious.
I grew up in the same house with my grandfather, and every night he was playing that violin.
Oh, really?
He was singing his song, and most of his music was composed with that violin. And then going to my father's atelier, for me that was my Luna Park when I was a kid. So looking at all kind of instruments, violins broken into pieces that he had to repair, or flutes, or clarinets, or guitars, all kind of instruments. That was for me like playground. I grew up there, so.
And you also learned an instrument?
I learned guitar, I learned piano, and I played drums and a little bit of violin. Just
okay.
To,
and your sister?
My sister is a pianist, a professional pianist. She's a teacher, and she's a concert. She plays concerts
okay.
with piano. Yeah. My father plays
everything.
Any kind of instrument. You give him an instrument, and even if he doesn't know it, give him 10 minutes, and he is going to be able to play a song with that.
And your mother doesn't play, no?
No, but my mother sings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're all a very happy family.
Yeah. But everyone. My uncle is a violinist. My other uncle plays the cornet like my grandfather.
No, actually, I just want to say, in my family, only the 5 kids of us, we all had to go to a music school, and so we had to go through this music education program, which started all we had with this stupid flute, which then at the very end was actually the main reason that I quit it with this music education, because they didn't want to listen to the small kids what one wants. If one wants to play the guitar and the other one, no, you have to play the flute. Oh. I think we gave a nice picture of you, without creating anything fancy here. The fanciest thing we are creating here are violins, and this is the violin which you will leave here and which we want here to have it here. Actually, we will buy it from Erli, and as soon as this is sold, the next one will be delivered. This is the project. So by the time you're watching this video now, I would suggest go to the web page. Maybe Christian at the time will already make all the pictures. I think it is super convincing. I like it. I have to see my point of view regarding Amati, because I always said it's nice but too small, but this one is super powerful. And I would say we go and finish here the retouch of all these things we have worked on. It's a pleasure to have you here in Cremona working with us together. Yeah?
The pleasure is all mine.
And don't forget to subscribe. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.